Hello, my name is Earl Schenk, and I'm a graduate research assistant at the Transnational NGO Initiative. I'm undertaking a brief interview today with Alexander Katz. Thank you for allowing us to interview you. This will be a helpful tool for students and faculty alike. Today we're going to be talking about some general questions that I have for you. Could you give us a brief overview of Patagonia and its mission?
Sure. So Patagonia is an outdoor clothing company. It's based in Ventura, California. It makes clothing for surfing, trail running, rock climbing, anything you want to do outdoors. We most likely have clothing that fits the sport. Its mission statement is build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, and use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis.
Okay. In what ways has Patagonia's work evolved over the years, especially in the context of social and environmental responsibility?
Yeah. So the mission statement came about at an early stage. The company actually, before Patagonia existed, Yvon Chouinard, the founder, had a rock climbing equipment company called Chouinard Equipment. And he was in business in order to climb. He wasn't in business for the sake of business. He wanted to make tools that were long-lasting and effective. And he was dissatisfied with the tools that were in existence. So he was really making equipment for him and his friends in order to climb, and he'd only do as much work as he needed to make money to go and climb. He found through the course of rock climbing that the early tools, namely pitons that you bang into the mountain, actually damage the rock. So you're defacing the rock, which in the long run means that you can't climb anymore because you're eliminating all the routes. So he invented a different system that enabled you to put the equipment into the mountain and remove it without damaging the surface. And that, I think, is really the genesis behind the second part of the mission statement, cause no unnecessary harm, right? Think about doing your work in a way that doesn't leave a trace, which is an important tenet of anything you do outdoors. You know, those sites like camping sites that are pack in, pack out, leave no trace of your presence. I think that's the same philosophy that Yvon had when he started the company. So when you're making clothing, or when you do really anything that involves energy, water, any type of emissions, you are causing environmental harm. It's not possible to do business without doing harm. That's really important to the company, and it's been the company's moved from an emphasis on environmental responsibility, which has always been strong, to more of a concentration on social responsibility, which is a newer area for the company. So now we're understanding our impact on the lives of the workers who make our product, the communities in which supplier factories are located, the impact on consumers, the impact on cities when you have to dispose of packaging, et cetera. So my line of work, which deals with social responsibility, is trying to understand better what type of impacts we're making on people and communities, and over time trying to improve the lives of workers and communities that are affected by our work.
Sure. So jumping back to that origin story about Patagonia, I could imagine where someone might say, sure, Patagonia did a lot of good and was willing to put its money where its mouth was back in the day, but are there any modern examples, more current examples of what Patagonia is doing to still embody this sort of sense of the environment is a priority above and beyond the profit component of being in business?
Yeah, I think there are many, many examples that I can speak to. Let me see. So over time, we've made a commitment to only use organic cotton in our clothing because we understand the impacts that conventional cotton has on the environment and on people. We are sourcing more and more environmentally responsible materials over time, so moving from man-made synthetics to organic, natural materials when possible, although it's not always possible. Reducing our packaging as much as we can. Producing in factories that meet our environmental and social standards, and consolidating that base so that we're able to do better work with a smaller group of people. I think one of the biggest things we've done recently is have our factories, as many as we can, certified to the Fair Trade USA standard, which means that not only do the factories meet our social responsibility standards, but they have integrated the worker's own voice into management of the factory. The workers have an opportunity to use a premium that we help fund in addition to the price we pay for each good, and the workers vote on how to use that premium on an annual basis. So that's a great way of messaging the work we're doing, the conditions at the factory, and having the consumers be a part of sustaining those factories and helping the workers.
Sure. So my last question is, as a leader in an internationally active social enterprise, what would be the 3 most pressing issues related to social and environmental impact that you would address if you had all the necessary resources and power to do so?
The number one issue for me that as an industry we're trying to figure out and is incredibly challenging is the issue of wages in the supply chain. We all know that wages are incredibly low. Even where minimum wages are guaranteed, they're often not at a level that allows workers to meet a decent standard of living and support the maintenance of a healthy and growing family. So in order to increase wages in the supply chain, we need to be conscious of the economic impacts that has in different contexts, and we need to admit that we can't do it alone. By only Patagonia paying more money for products, for materials, we're not going to be able to impact wages in a factory. So it's something that as an industry we have to come together and decide on strategies that we can all support. And those strategies may vary from country to country or from region to region within a country, but generally we need somebody, whether it's the Fair Labor Association or some other group, to facilitate discussion among brands and retailers, include governments in the process, include activists, trade unions, and other voices for workers in trying to figure out this problem.
Sure.
That's number one. Number two, and you've seen this probably in the news in the last couple of years, there's big concern over the health and safety of workers in the supply chain. Everybody, I hope, at this point knows about the Rana Plaza disaster in Bangladesh, where a building that contained many factories collapsed and over 1,300 people were killed. The concern for workers' well-beings in the supply chain can't be understated, and it's something that is very uncomfortable for businesses. It's an uncomfortable gap for businesses to fill while governments take in action. So I think that businesses like Patagonia and others can do all we can to ensure workers' health and safety is guaranteed, but we also need to figure out ways of increasing the government's capacity or willingness to protect their people instead of leaving that hole for businesses to fill. I'd say number 3 is businesses that do a good job of impacting workers' lives need to be able to prove that they're doing a good job. So we need some tried and trusted methods that can be replicated by businesses around the world to measure, show impacts, and be able to adjust when the research shows or whatever studies they're doing show that they can make adjustments to improve the effectiveness of their programs. There's a lot of people out there trying to do a lot of good work, but if you don't know that you're doing good work, you need to be more reflective. So that's a challenge that we're trying to figure out. And luckily, there's a lot of work being done in that area as people become more savvy when it comes to data collection and analysis. And forums like the Fair Labor Association actually help us as a business analyze our data and make changes year to year.
Sure. I'll throw one more question at you. What one thing do you wish NGOs knew or took into consideration in the way that they interact with Patagonia or engage with the factories that Patagonia does work in?
Okay, so I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I do wish there was more understanding of the constraints that businesses operate under. When we're approached by an NGO, an activist organization that asks us to make a change to the way we do our work, or that points out a flaw in our supply chain, we oftentimes ask the NGO if they're willing to engage in solving the problem. And at times we're met with resistance or a response that we don't have the resources to do that. That's not the type of organization we are. And we often reply by saying we would like to address this issue. Here's how we're planning to. These are the constraints we're operating under. And the respect for those constraints is very important because we're honest about them. We don't say that we can or we don't say that we can't. We say we can but it's going to take this amount of time, and this is how we're thinking about addressing it. Can you support us in this way, and can you show us a different way of doing it if we haven't focused on the right solution? So that open back and forth, I think, would be more helpful if NGOs out there that operate in this space were willing to have that back and forth conversation.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. Well, thank you, Alex. This has been very helpful.